Three acts of absolute faith in the Bible, a journey of trust and obedience. From the dawn of creation to the fulfillment of God's redemptive plan, the Bible is woven with stories of profound faith. These are not merely tales of human bravery, but divine encounters where frail men and women trusted the unseen and embraced the impossible. Through these acts of absolute faith, God revealed his nature and purpose, and the world was forever changed. Here are three such monumental acts, each echoing a call to trust beyond understanding, and each heavy with symbolic meaning for believers through the ages. First act, Abraham's offering of Isaac. The ultimate test of faith. In a world filled with gods who demanded human sacrifice, Abraham's God stood apart, a God who called for trust and obedience, not death. Yet, in a moment that would shake the foundations of Abraham's faith, God asked him to offer his beloved son Isaac as a sacrifice. Isaac was more than a child. He was the embodiment of God's covenant, the miracle born to a barren couple in their old age, and the promise that Abraham's descendants would be as numerous as the stars. To ask for Isaac was to ask for Abraham's very future. Yet, without hesitation, Abraham set out on the journey to Moriah, trusting that God, who had given the promise, could also fulfill it in ways beyond human reasoning. The act itself, as Abraham lifted the knife, symbolized the ultimate surrender of human will to divine command. But at the moment of trial, God intervened, providing a ram as a substitute sacrifice. This act foreshadowed the greater sacrifice to come, when God would offer his own son for the salvation of mankind. Abraham's obedience demonstrated that faith means trusting God, even when the path is shrouded in mystery, and that God is the provider, Jehovah Jireh, making a way where there seems to be none. Second act, Moses and the parting of the Red Sea. Faith in the face of impossible odds. From slavery to freedom, the journey of the Israelites was marked by moments where only faith could carry them forward. One of the most profound of these was at the Red Sea. After generations of bondage, God delivered his people from Egypt with a mighty hand, but their freedom was soon tested as Pharaoh's army pursued them, and the sea stood before them as an unyielding barrier. In that moment, faith was not just a private conviction, but a collective act of trust. The people stood trapped between an approaching enemy and the vast waters, and it was Moses, holding the staff of God, who embodied faith for them all. At God's command, Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the waters parted, a symbol of divine intervention, making a way through death itself. The Red Sea became a threshold, a place of symbolic death and rebirth. The Israelites passed through on dry ground, emerging on the other side as a liberated people, while their enemies were swallowed by the returning waters. This act of faith showed that God delivers his people from seemingly impossible situations, and that faith calls us to step forward, even when the way is not yet visible. Third act, the widow of Zarephath. Faith in divine provision. In the days of Elijah, a great famine ravaged the land. The prophet, sent by God, found refuge in Zarephath, where a widow lived with her son. She was gathering sticks to prepare what she believed would be her last meal. Yet, when Elijah asked for bread, she chose to give her last bit of flour and oil to the prophet, trusting in his word that God would provide. Her act of faith was not performed in abundance but in scarcity. She faced death, and yet chose to trust the God she barely knew. Her jar of flour and jug of oil did not run dry for many days, sustaining her household until the famine ended. Symbolically, her story speaks of faith in God's provision, even when resources are gone. It points to the greater truth that God's supply is endless, that he can multiply what little we have when it is given in trust. Her faith is a picture of surrender, offering what seems insufficient, only to discover that God's sufficiency knows no limits. Symbolism and meaning for today. Each of these acts of faith speaks deeply into the human experience of fear, doubt, and hope. Abraham's sacrifice symbolizes surrender and trust in God's ultimate plan. It teaches that obedience may require letting go of what we hold dearest, trusting that God sees the end from the beginning. Moses at the Red Sea symbolizes deliverance and trust in God's power over the impossible. It reminds us that even when all seems lost, God can make a way. The widow of Zarephath symbolizes faith in provision and the principle of giving, even in scarcity. It teaches that God honors sacrificial faith and cares for those who trust him. Together, These stories form a tapestry of faith that transcends time. They show that faith is not blind but grounded in the character of God. They remind believers that God is faithful to his promises, powerful to save, and abundant in provision. Though trials may come, those who walk in faith will see God's hand move in ways beyond comprehension. In a world still plagued by uncertainty and fear, these ancient acts of faith call out to modern hearts. Trust, obey, and believe. For the God who parted seas, who provided rams, and who multiplied flour and oil, is the same God who walks with his people today.